Hey friends, this is Michael Bohm with Youth Apologetics Training. Today we're going to keep going with this series about Islam, the Quran, and Mohammed. Today we're going to continue talking about the Quran and some of the problems that are found in it. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. I want to mention too that Muslims will claim that the Quran was handed down from heaven. And it's interesting to note, they say that none of it is written from the first person of Muhammad. It's all God, supposedly Allah, speaking, right? But there are some verses in the Quran that are clearly first person Muhammad speaking, and not to mention, for example, from the Concise Encyclopedia of Islam, it says the Arabic of the Quran is in the dialect and vocabulary of someone who was a member of the Quraysh tribe living in the city of Mecca. Okay, so they're claiming that the Quran has Allah's fingerprints all over it, but what we're actually seeing when we examine the text is that the Quran has somebody from the tribe of the Quraysh, their fingerprints all over it, their dialect, their vocabulary, their way of speaking. It's interesting. Now, moving on, the Quran also has a plethora, a cornucopia, a copious amount, quite a few contradictions in it. And I've mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to just name off a few here because really there's so many websites solely devoted to contradictions in the Quran. And just for example, they have scientific contradictions, so contradictions that contradict science as we know it, just bizarre stuff. They have internal contradictions where the Quran will contradict itself. We have contradictions between the Quran and the Hadith, which are supposedly both writings from Muhammad. We have contradictions, obviously, from between the Quran and the Bible. We don't even need to say that. And we have contradictions between the Quran and just known history. Stuff that we know happened at certain times, Muhammad will attribute to other parts of history. Very interesting. So I'm just going to name off a few because I don't want to get stuck looking at all these. Not right now. Again, this is supposed to be a series just introducing you to Islam, but I wanted you guys to get a feel for what this is like. There's whole books written on the supposed contradictions in the Bible. Okay, there's whole websites devoted to these supposed contradictions. There's also entire books like Norm Geisler's book. Oh boy, I can't remember the title all of a sudden. It's either When Skeptics Ask or When Critics Ask. I can't remember. Both of them kind of have the same kind of theme, but one of them deals more with contradictions in the Bible, and it goes verse by or contradiction by contradiction. It's laid out like the Bible. So you could just flip to, for example, the book of Matthew, and there you'll find in order all the supposed alleged contradictions. And then you'll hear what Norm Geisler, who's a pretty good scholar, says about these contradictions. The other one deals in, he has another book, When Cultists Ask. And, oh boy, I hope I'm not botching this, but he has another one where he deals with what different alleged contradictions or issues that come up when you're talking to a Mormon or Jehovah's Witness or Christian Scientist or something like that. And that's really handy too. That's a cool book as well. Anyway, there's lots of books written and refuting and very satisfactorily refuting these alleged contradictions in the Bible. I tend to believe very strongly there is not one single contradiction in the scriptures that cannot be answered adequately by just simply reading the verse in context and reading the Bible as a whole unit and not taking stuff and isolating it and then saying, see, your God goofed up. On the other hand, there's stuff in the Quran that you just can't explain away. So let's look at a couple of them. And by the way, I'm going to be placing some links on these various podcast posts so that you can find different articles and really good websites that devote all their time to pointing out these contradictions that are in the Quran. So I'll link you to these different places where you can find this stuff. And just to kind of kick this whole idea off, Surah 4, verse 82, it says, "Had it been from other than Allah, they would surely have found therein much discrepancy." Okay, so what are we reading there? That's kind of a confusing little verse there. If the verse was coming from anybody but Allah, you should surely find some contradictions, some discrepancies. And as we will see, we are going to see some discrepancies. Therefore, according to their own standard that Mohammed wrote down, if it was from Allah, there should be no discrepancies, right? Well, let's go and look at some of these. And by the way, you guys are probably expecting me to deliver to you the best contradictions. Let me just put it this way. There were so many. When I started looking, I realized I was getting buried in contradictions. And I was thinking to myself, good grief, I don't want to be an expert on this subject, at least not right now. There was so many that I just started picking some. So no, I'm not giving you the best. I'm just going to deliver to you the ones that stood out to me. I didn't even read them all. There were so many. I just grabbed some that either made me chuckle or I just thought were kind of good. So here you go. This is what you get, okay? This is what you get. So check this out. Some scientific type contradictions. We have in Surah, and you guys can look this up yourself, Surah 27, verses 18 through 19. You have Solomon, King Solomon. He overhears a conversation with ants. A-N-T-S, ants. The little dudes that are cruising around on the ground, sometimes they bite you. Solomon overhears a conversation of ants. He's listening to them, and he can hear them speaking, and he understands what they're saying. It's just strange. The Quran has the sun setting in a muddy spring, like a muddy puddle. Okay, you got to see this. It says, "Till when he, the traveler Zulkarnain, reached the setting place of the sun, he found it going down into a muddy spring." Guys, I don't even think I need to explain that. We know that the sun does not set in a muddy spring. This is from Surah 13, verse 3. Mohammed claims that Allah had made all fruits in pairs, as in male and female. Okay, science knows for a fact that's not the case. And, oh boy, the website I saw this off of, they kind of went out of hand with this whole idea. They went way too far. They had me laughing, but, they were making jokes like, should we be putting male and female fruits in bowls together? Do we need to segregate the fruits? And, they just kept going. And to the point where it got a little steamy and out of control. And, yikes. They went way too far. But anyway, it says this: "He is the one who constructed the earth and placed on it mountains and rivers, and from the different kinds of fruits he made them into pairs, male and female." And guys, we know this scientifically. Over 70% of plants are hermaphroditic, as in they can self-pollinate themselves. They have all the pieces and parts that are necessary to reproduce themselves. They don't need a male and a female. All right? This is a goof up. This is a scientific goof. And so moving on, again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just so you guys have a feel for this, and there's so many of these, it's probably a good place to stop. Come out to the website, youthapologeticstraining.com. There you can leave comments and questions. I do want to talk to you guys. Also, you can catch me on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. And with that, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.